"Come on, buddy, we don't need a castle, we just need a moat," Carter Callahan said, kneeling in the warm sand as his 5-year-old son, Brayden, jabbed a plastic shovel into the wet beach. Brayden's face was full of determination, tongue sticking out as he concentrated. "But castles are cooler, Dad." Carter laughed under his breath, brushing back his dark hair with a sandy hand. He glanced at the ocean, the sun catching the waves just right, and for a moment, just a second, he forgot about the overdue bills sitting in a pile on the kitchen counter, the 2 jobs he juggled, and the fact that he'd packed ham sandwiches in a reused grocery bag because that's all he could afford this week. He just saw his kid smiling, and for now, that was enough. A little ways down the beach, a woman in a white sun hat and oversized sunglasses adjusted the strap on her sundress and flipped open a bottle of sunscreen. She knelt down, rubbing it into her arms and legs, completely unaware of the sand-covered 5-year-old now barreling toward her. "Brayden," Carter called, but it was too late. Brayden's sandy hands landed square on the woman's freshly lotioned leg. "Sorry," he said, "not sorry at all." "You're really shiny." The woman blinked, startled, and then let out a soft laugh. "Well, that's one way to say hello." Carter rushed over, out of breath. "I'm so sorry, he's curious and very fast." She looked up and Carter froze. Even behind the sunglasses, she was stunning, glossy dark hair, full lips, and an effortless kind of elegance he hadn't seen outside of magazines. "It's okay," she said, smiling. "I needed a little chaos today." Carter picked up Brayden. "We didn't mean to bother you. I didn't say you were bothering me," she interrupted, her voice calm but direct. He hesitated. "Still, we'll get out of your way." "I'd rather you didn't," Carter blinked. "Sorry," she reached into her beach bag and pulled out a bottle of cold water. "I'm here alone. Beaches are more fun with people." Brayden immediately grinned. "You want to help with our moat?" The woman glanced at Carter, then smiled softly. "Actually, yeah, I do." Carter hesitated. He didn't know her, and she didn't seem like the kind of woman who usually played in the sand with strangers' kids. Her French manicured nails, designer sunglasses, and that subtle but expensive perfume that drifted in the air when she moved. She didn't belong in his world. But Brayden was already dragging her toward the half-dug moat, and she was laughing. "I'm Carter," he said finally, walking over. She looked up. Zara Dalton." "Zara," he repeated, trying it out. "You don't look like someone who builds moats. You don't look like someone who apologizes so much," she shot back with a grin. Brayden dumped another bucket of water into the sand. "We're making a fort now." Zara dropped to her knees next to him. "All right, but it needs a flag." "I don't build anything without a flag." Carter watched them for a while, arms crossed, unsure of what just happened. They were laughing together like they'd known each other more than 5 minutes. The sun drifted lower, and at some point, Zara pulled out a small cooler from under her lounge chair. "Hungry?" she asked, offering Carter a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. "Turkey and avocado. I brought too much." Carter stared at it. It had been a long time since someone offered him something like that with no strings attached. "Thanks," he said, taking it. They sat in the sand while Brayden continued his masterpiece. "So, Carter," Zara said, brushing sand from her legs, "what do you do?" He exhaled. "I install HVAC systems, and at night I stock shelves. Not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on." She nodded. "That sounds like hard work." He looked at her, trying to figure her out. "What about you?" "I run a company," she said casually. Carter raised an eyebrow. "What kind of company?" "Tech, logistics. It's boring unless you're in it." "CEO?" he asked, half joking. "Yeah," she replied, taking a sip of water. "I am." Carter choked on his bite. "Wait, you're serious?" She grinned. "Is it that hard to believe?" He looked her up and down. The polished nails, the calm confidence, the perfect skin. "Honestly, no. But I didn't expect to meet a CEO sitting in the sand building a fort with my kid." Zara shrugged. "Sometimes I like to disappear. No boardrooms, no emails, just waves and sunscreen." He smiled. "And surprise moats." They sat in silence for a beat, the sound of the ocean filling the space between them. Brayden finally plopped down beside them, tired and covered in sand. Carter handed him a juice box and he leaned into his dad's side. "You're a good dad," Zara said softly. Carter glanced down at his son, who was already half asleep. "I'm trying." "You're more than trying." He looked at her again. Something about the way she said it stuck with him, like she meant it, like she saw him. "You're not what I expected today," he said. Zara smiled. "Neither are you." They sat there until the sun dipped below the horizon, soft gold bleeding into the sky. Eventually, Carter stood, lifting Brayden into his arms. "We should get going." "Same," Zara said, brushing the sand off her dress. He hesitated. "Hey, if you ever want to build another moat." She looked up at him, her expression unreadable behind her sunglasses. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a pen, and scribbled something on a napkin. "No phones," she said. "Just meet me here. Same time next Sunday." He took the napkin, his heart beating louder than it should have. "Deal." As he walked away, Brayden snored against his shoulder and Carter glanced back once. Zara was still there, watching him with a smile that felt like the beginning of something real. Zara Dalton arrived early the following Sunday, the tide still crawling up the sand and the morning air crisp, despite the sun beginning to climb. She didn't know why her heart had kicked up the second she stepped onto the beach, or why she'd checked her reflection in the rearview mirror of her matte black convertible a dozen times before getting out. She'd told herself it was just a break. Just space from the endless board meetings and investor calls. But her heels were still on the passenger seat, and she'd come barefoot, in jeans and a linen blouse, as if she didn't want to look like the woman who signed paychecks for 300 employees. She spotted them before they saw her. Carter crouched low, drawing lines in the sand with a stick, Brayden bouncing beside him, narrating something with wide gestures. Zara smiled instinctively. Brayden saw her first and pointed. "Dad." "It's her." Carter turned, then stood, brushing his palms on his shorts. "You're early." "So are you," Zara said, walking up. "I thought I'd claim the good sand before someone else got to it." Brayden ran up to her, holding something behind his back. "We made you a flag." "Like you said." Zara knelt. "You did." He revealed a popsicle stick with a red wrapper taped to the top, a crude heart drawn on it with a blue crayon. "It's for the castle. It's perfect," Zara said, and she meant it. Carter watched her interact with his son, something unreadable in his gaze. "We started without you. Hope that's not a deal-breaker." "Depends," Zara said, turning to him. "Are you building a palace this time or another military fortress?" He lifted a shoulder. Brayden said it was a pirate hideout. "I didn't argue." "Smart," she replied, taking her place beside them on the sand. They worked with easy rhythm, Brayden delighting in giving orders, Zara and Carter following them like loyal subordinates. But after a while, he wandered off toward a tide pool, distracted by the promise of tiny sea creatures. Zara leaned back on her hands, watching him. "He's fearless." "Too fearless," Carter said, but there was no worry in his tone. "He broke his arm last year climbing a tree to get a frisbee. Told the nurse it was worth it." Zara chuckled. "He's got your eyes." Carter glanced at her. "You think so?" She nodded. "Same shape, same way they narrow when he's figuring something out." There was a pause. A gull cried overhead. "You didn't say what brought you to this beach last week," Carter said finally. "Just that you wanted to disappear." Zara looked out at the ocean. "I was supposed to be in Tokyo, investors, product demo, the usual song and dance, but I woke up that morning and couldn't breathe. So I got in the car and drove until I saw water." Carter didn't interrupt. "My assistant had a meltdown. My CFO threatened to call my father, but I didn't care. I just needed to be no one for a while." He nodded slowly. "I get that. You do?" "Yeah." He picked up a shell, turned it over in his hand. "There's a kind of peace in not being anything to anyone for a minute, except maybe a dad." Zara studied him. "You ever wish you were someone else?" He shook his head. "No, I just wish I could give him more." "That's the only thing I'd change." Zara's voice was soft. "You give him exactly what he needs." Carter looked at her then, really looked. "You say that like you know." "I do," she said. "Because when I was a kid, I would have traded every dollar my family had just to have someone look at me the way you look at him." There was a weight to her words that Carter didn't press, but something shifted between them. Brayden came back with a handful of wet rocks. "Look. I found treasure. Let me see," Zara said, reaching out. "Wow, pirate gold." "Better," he said. "Ocean crystals." She took one, holding it up to the light. "I've never seen anything like it." Carter ruffled his son's hair. "You've got an eye for rare things, kid." As the sun climbed higher, the beach began to fill. Zara glanced at her watch and sighed. I have to go, Carter raised a brow. Back to the boardroom, unfortunately. She stood, brushing the sand off her jeans. But I'd rather be here, Brayden frowned. Will you come next week? Zara hesitated. I leave for Geneva on Friday. I'll be gone 10 days. Carter stood too. That's a lot of airports. That's a lot of pretending I care about quarterly forecasts, she said with a dry laugh. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded piece of cardstock. But if you ever want to call me instead of waiting for the tide, here. Carter took it. Her name was embossed in silver lettering. No number, just an address. A private office suite in the city. You don't do phones, he asked. I do visits, she said, and coffee, and possibly reckless decisions. Carter tucked it into his pocket. I'll think about it. Zara leaned down and kissed Brayden on the temple. Take care of your dad, okay? He nodded solemnly. She turned and walked back up the beach, her bare feet leaving temporary prints in the sand. Carter watched her go, the card heavy in his pocket. Brayden tugged his hand. Dad? Yeah, bud, do you like her? Carter looked down at his son, then back at the disappearing figure of Zara Dalton. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I do, Brayden nodded. Good, I think she likes you too. Carter didn't reply, but he didn't throw the card away either. Carter adjusted the collar of his only decent button-down shirt, frowning at his reflection in the glass door of the office building. It was taller than anything he'd ever stood beneath. All steel and mirrored windows that caught the afternoon sun like a monument to people who didn't worry about rent. He was still holding Brayden's hand, the little boy's sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished floor as they stepped into the lobby. Are we in a hotel? Brayden asked, eyes wide. No, bud. Carter glanced around, spotting the security desk. It's an office building. Brayden pointed at a chandelier above them. Then why does it look like a castle? Carter didn't have a good answer. Everything about this place was intimidating. Even the air smelled expensive like leather and lemon polish. He approached the front desk where a woman in a headset looked up from her monitor. Hi, I'm here to see Zara Dalton. The woman blinked, then gave him a once-over, not rude but definitely surprised. Name, Carter Callahan. She typed something, then nodded. She's expecting you. Take the elevator to the top floor. Carter swallowed and guided Brayden toward the elevators. When the doors opened, he stepped in, heart thudding. He hadn't planned to come, but the card had stayed in his wallet all week, and every time he pulled it out, his hands shook a little. The elevator opened into a private reception area, sleek and quiet. A sharply dressed assistant looked up from his desk and smiled. Mr. Callahan? Yeah, Miss Dalton's conference is wrapping up. She asked that you wait in her office. He led them through a glass door, revealing a corner suite that looked like something out of a movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and a long white couch sat beside a glass coffee table with a tray of pastries and 2 glasses of sparkling water. Brayden went straight for the pastries. Don't touch anything, Carter said, but the words were half-hearted. He walked to the window, staring out. The city looked different from up here, like a puzzle you could finally see the edges of. Behind him, Brayden had already made himself comfortable on the couch, holding a chocolate croissant in both hands. The door opened. Zara stepped in, a navy blazer over a silk blouse, her hair pinned up in a way that made her look even more powerful than he remembered. But her eyes softened the moment she saw them. I didn't think you'd come, Carter turned. Neither did I. She walked over, setting a folder on her desk. I was hoping you would. Brayden waved at her with one hand, the other still holding the croissant. These are really good. I'm glad, Zara said. They're from a bakery in Montauk. My assistant hates how much I spend on them. Carter rubbed the back of his neck. This place doesn't feel real. It rarely does, she said, walking to the window beside him. That's kind of the problem. Carter looked at her. You don't like it? I didn't say that. She crossed her arms, but it's easy to lose yourself in it. Up here, everything looks small. Even the things that used to matter. He studied her face. There was something different about her today. Not tired exactly, but worn in a way that hadn't been there on the beach. You all right? He asked. She hesitated. My board wants to replace me. Carter blinked. What? They think I've lost focus, that I'm distracted. One of the directors called me emotionally compromised. She gave a short laugh. Can you believe that? He frowned. Because you took a break, because I've been human. He didn't know what to say to that, not right away. Then he asked, why tell me? Because you see me differently, you don't care about my title, you didn't look me up, you didn't come here expecting anything. I didn't even know if I should come at all, he admitted. Why did you? Carter looked over at Brayden, who had fallen asleep on the couch with crumbs on his shirt. I couldn't stop thinking about you, he said quietly. And not just because you're beautiful or rich or whatever. But because when I'm around you, I don't feel like I'm dragging us through mud just to survive. I feel like I can breathe. Zara didn't speak for a moment, then she stepped closer. I like the way you see the world, she said. I like how steady you are. How you don't flinch when the ground shifts. I flinch plenty, Carter said. I just hide it from him. They stood in silence, the city stretching out beneath them. Then Zara said, I have to make a choice soon. Step down or let them force me out. If I fight it, it'll get ugly. What are you going to do? Her voice was quiet. I don't know yet, Carter looked at her. Whatever you decide, you won't lose who you are. Zara turned her head to him. You're the first person to say that. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. I don't have much, he said. But I know what matters, and you're not just a CEO, you're Zara. You laugh with my kid, you build moats in the sand, and you make me want more than just getting through the next paycheck. Her eyes shimmered just barely. I don't want to lose this, she whispered. Then don't. Zara stepped closer. She reached up, her fingers brushing his jaw. I'm terrified, she said. So am I. She leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't perfect. He tasted faintly of coffee and her lipstick smudged against his cheek. But it was real, and it was hers. When they pulled apart, Brayden stirred on the couch and mumbled something about pirates. Zara laughed softly. He's going to make fun of us for that when he's older. Carter smiled. Let him. He'll know how his dad fell for a woman who changed everything. Her eyes met his. I'm not done changing things yet. Outside, the sky had begun to turn gold, the city glowing as the sun lowered. Inside, two people stood on the edge of something unknown and didn't back away. Carter stepped into the penthouse with a strange mix of awe and discomfort. The elevator had opened directly into the living room, revealing a space so breathtaking, it didn't seem real glass walls offering a sweeping view of the skyline, soft amber lights glowing above sleek modern furniture, and the faintest hum of classical piano drifting from hidden speakers. It was Zara's home, but to Carter it felt like another planet. Brayden, wide-eyed and holding tightly to his dad's hand, whispered, Is this a museum? Zara laughed gently from behind them. Close. But in this one, you're allowed to touch things. Carter reached down and squeezed his son's shoulder. Just not everything. Zara walked ahead of them, her heels soundless against the polished floors. I thought we could have dinner here tonight. I wanted to cook. You cook? Carter asked before he could stop himself. She glanced over her shoulder. You think I only know how to order takeout? I think you have a driver waiting outside with a sushi menu in his glove box. She grinned. He does. But tonight I'm making pasta, Brayden beamed. With meatballs, giant ones, she said, and garlic bread the size of your head. As she disappeared into the kitchen, Carter followed slowly, helping Brayden onto a tall stool at the marble island. He didn't know what stunned him more, that Zara had invited them into her world like this, or that she looked so at ease moving around a kitchen that probably cost more than his entire apartment complex. You okay? She asked, glancing at him while she chopped parsley with practiced ease. I've just never had dinner in a place where the salt comes in a tiny stone bowl. Wait until you see the wine, she said, pulling a bottle from a temperature-controlled cabinet. Picked it up in Bordeaux 3 summers ago. Carter leaned on the counter. You're really trying to impress me. Zara poured the wine into 2 crystal glasses and slid one toward him. No, I'm trying to show you I want you here. He took a sip, watching her. This is your real life, isn't it? It's one of them, she said, stirring a pot. The other involves sand, sunscreen, and a certain 5-year-old pirate. Brayden raised his hand from the end of the counter. That's me. I remember, she said warmly. Dinner was loud and messy in the best way. Zara didn't flinch when Brayden dropped a fork or got sauce on the pristine linen napkin. She told stories about the worst meals she'd ever cooked, one involving a fire alarm and a melted spatula, and Carter found himself laughing harder than he had in months. After Brayden finished eating, he curled up on the couch with a thick blanket Zara had handed him from a cabinet he couldn't even see the seams of. The lights dimmed automatically, and the city glowed behind the giant windows like a field of stars. Carter stood by the glass, the skyline stretching endlessly beneath them. Zara joined him, her bare feet silent against the floor. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For trusting me with this, with him." He looked over at her. "You didn't ask for easy." "I didn't want easy," she said. "I wanted real." Carter hesitated. "You ever think about what happens next?" "Every minute," she admitted. "I know our lives don't fit together on paper, but I don't care about paper." He turned toward her. "I'm not used to this." "What? Being wanted like this? No strings?" "No conditions." Zara reached out and took his hand. "I want your bad days, Carter. I want the tired nights and the mornings when the coffee's not strong enough. I want Brayden's soccer games and your sarcastic jokes and the way you look at people when you think they're not watching." He swallowed hard. "You're going to ruin me." "I hope not," she said. "I'm trying to rebuild you. I don't know how to be part of this world." "You're not here to be part of it," she said. "You're here to change it." Carter stared at her, heart pounding. "I want to make something clear," she added. "I'm not asking you to be anyone else. I'm offering to meet you where you are, but I need to know if you're willing to step forward." "I am," he said, "but only if I bring everything with me, messes, baggage, the whole kit." "I'll carry some of it," she said. "You don't have to do it all alone." He stepped closer and kissed her, slower this time. No hesitation, no questions left behind. Just certainty and the warmth of someone who'd waited a long time to feel like he belonged. When they pulled apart, Brayden stirred on the couch. Zara turned toward him. "I set up the guest room. He's welcome to stay." Carter nodded. "He'll be out the second his head hits the pillow." Later, once Brayden was settled under a navy comforter in a room that looked like a catalog page, Carter returned to the living room. Zara stood by the bar, pouring 2 more glasses of wine. "I told my board yesterday I was stepping back temporarily," she said, handing him a glass. "I need time. I want to figure out what I want, not what I'm supposed to chase." Carter took the glass, watching her. "You're not scared." "I am," she said. "But I'm more afraid of waking up 5 years from now wondering why I let everything real slip away." He nodded slowly. "So what now?" Zara walked to the window, gazing out at the city. "We build something together." Carter set his glass down and crossed the room to her. "I've never built anything with a view like this," he said. She turned to him, her voice steady. "Then let's make it ours." Outside, the city stretched into forever. Inside, Carter wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. And in the softly lit hallway, a boy dreamed of moats and castles, safe, warm, and already home. Zara stood on the balcony of the lakeside lodge, watching the morning mist rise off the water. A chill clung to the air, but she didn't move. The silence was rare, and she drank it in. Behind her, inside the cabin, a crackling fire glowed through the tall stone hearth. She could hear Brayden's laughter as he played some invented card game with Carter, their voices bouncing off the log walls, warm and alive. It had been 3 months since she stepped back from her company. 3 months since she'd finally stopped measuring her worth in market shares and quarterly projections. The first 2 weeks had been chaos. Her name filled headlines and every financial outlet speculated about her reasons. But she didn't grant interviews. She didn't explain. She simply walked away. And toward something better, she turned as the screen door opened behind her. Carter stepped out barefoot, a thick sweater slung over his shoulder and 2 mugs in hand. "Figured you'd be out here," he said, handing her one. "I like the quiet," she said, curling her fingers around the warm ceramic. He leaned against the railing beside her, letting the silence stretch. "You ever miss it?" he asked after a while. "The skyline or the chaos?" he exhaled. "Both. I thought I would," she said. "But now it feels like someone else's life." Carter glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "I got a call yesterday from a guy I used to work with, offered me a job in the city, better hours, more pay." She didn't answer right away. "Would you take it?" I told him I'd think about it. He looked out at the water, but I already knew the answer. She turned toward him fully. "You don't have to stay here because of me." "I'm not staying for you," he said. "I'm staying for us." She didn't say anything, but her hand found his. Inside, the laughter had quieted. Brayden had fallen asleep on the rug beside the fire, a blanket draped over him and a half-built puzzle at his side. Carter carried him to the guest room, his steps careful, and Zara followed. Later, they sat on the couch with the fire low and the world outside dipped in silver. Zara rested her head on Carter's shoulder, his thumb brushing along her knuckles as he traced small circles against her hand. "I've been thinking," she said softly, "dangerous territory." She nudged his side. "I'm serious." He turned his face slightly toward her. "What about a foundation?" she said. "For single parents, for kids who need better schools, better chances. I don't want to build apps anymore. I want to build something that matters." He was quiet for a long beat. Then he said, "That sounds a hell of a lot more important than air freight optimization." "I want you involved," she added. "Not just as support, I mean part of it." He looked at her, surprised. "You want me to help run it, I want you to help shape it. You know what it's like to fight for every inch, to work 2 jobs and still fall short. You know what families like that need because you've been one." He swallowed. "I don't have your degrees or your financial sense. You have something better," she said. "You have heart. You have lived experience, and you have a way of seeing through the noise. I need that." He reached for her face, cupping her cheek. "You're not just building a foundation, Zara. You're building a life, and I want to be in every part of it." "Good," she said, her voice thick. "Because I bought a house yesterday." His eyes widened. "You what? Not this cabin," she said quickly. "Something nearby, more space. A yard Brayden can tear through, an actual garage. I want roots, Carter. I don't want to live out of penthouses and luggage anymore." He stared at her for a long moment, then leaned forward and kissed her. When he pulled back, his voice was low. "Are you asking us to move in with you? I'm asking you to move home." He grinned. "You should have led with that," she laughed, breathless. They didn't rush things. Over the next few weeks, they packed slowly. Carter gave notice at his job. Brayden said goodbye to his school with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Zara handled everything else with her usual precision, but softer now, no longer driven by performance, but by purpose. When they finally moved in, the house felt like it had been waiting for them. Carter took over the garage, transforming it into a workshop. Zara turned the sunroom into her new office, filled not with screens and stock tickers, but with blueprints and books about community development. Brayden made friends quickly and began every school day with a bounce in his step. One evening, as they lay on the porch swing watching the stars blink into view, Carter turned to her. "You know what I think about sometimes? Tell me. That first day on the beach, if Brayden hadn't run up to you." She smiled. "I probably would have walked right past you." He kissed her shoulder. "That's a terrifying thought." "We were always going to meet," she said. "Somehow. Fate." "No," she whispered. "Something better, choice." A month later, they hosted a dinner at their new home. Friends came, neighbors. A few of Zara's former employees who still adored her. Laughter filled the rooms and drifted out onto the lawn where fairy lights twinkled overhead. After everyone left and Brayden was fast asleep, Carter found Zara in the kitchen, barefoot, swirling the last of a glass of wine. He walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and pressed a kiss to her neck. "Marry me," he said. She stilled, then turned. "Are you asking me without a ring? I'll ask you again with one," he said. "But I couldn't wait." She reached up and touched his face, her eyes wet with something soft, something powerful. "Yes." And this time he kissed her like he'd waited his whole life for it. They got married 6 months later in a ceremony under the oak tree in their backyard. Brayden stood between them in a tiny navy suit and held both their hands when they said their vows. There were no reporters, no investors, just friends, family, and the unshakable warmth of a life built, not inherited. Zara wore a simple gown, her feet bare in the grass. Carter wore the same suit he had worn to his interview for that job he never took. They danced under the stars while Brayden spun in circles nearby, his laughter ringing louder than the music. And when the night wound down and the guests had gone and the lanterns flickered low, Zara and Carter stood on their porch, her head on his chest, his hands around her waist. Everything they needed was right there. A home, a family, and a love that had rewritten everything.